Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Today I'm sharing some cards I made using Honeybee Stamps Farm Fresh Holiday 6x6 paper pad. I also picked up the coordinating gem stickers. I do with all of their collections since the colors match beautifully with the paper collection. So here's just a quick look at all of the papers that are included. This is a 24 sheet double-sided paper pad. Beautiful papers. I love the range of styles and designs. Now I won't be doing my full 6x6 tutorial simply because I'm short on time right now. I did purchase their brand new Love Letters collection and I will be doing a full 6x6 video with that. I will add a link in the description box if you want to check it out. It's beautiful. So let's go ahead and get started with my first set of cards. I'm combining two different pattern papers, one with the snowflakes and the other has a wood grain pattern on it. To add some separation between the two patterns, I'm going to put a strip of black cardstock. It's about 1/2 inch wide. First, I'll put my card front onto a card base, leaving that 1/8 inch of the white card base showing. It'll add some really nice contrast. And for that black strip that's going to go across the card, I did cut it to the full 5.5 inches, so it goes off of some of those pattern papers. To add a little bit of shine, I'm using some black Love from Lizi peel-offs. This is the pinstripe style. Just putting one along the edge of that black strip. And then I'll just trim off the extra. If you want more information about Love from Lizi peel-offs and where to purchase them, I will add a link on the screen to a video where I talk all about her amazing peel-offs. For this sentiment, I'm using this winter word die by Honeybee Stamps. There's 3 different dies. It has the word and then also 2 outlines. I cut out the word winter with some black cardstock and then I'm going to layer it on some gray cardstock that has a pearlescent finish on it. And then I'll layer that on some white cardstock. I love that pierced detail all along the edge of that back outline die. Even though this paper collection has the word holiday in it, I won't be making any holiday cards. I decided to make just winter cards and I'll also do one thank you card. There's really only one design that's specifically a holiday look. The rest are perfect for winter or any time of year. I did decide to pop up this sentiment, added some thin foam squares to the back, and then adhered it to the center of the card. Now most of Honeybee Stamps word dies also have the coordinating stamp set. So you can stamp out a few of the words and create some different sentiments. So for this card, I'm going to have warm winter wishes. I'll just adhere the warm, the upper left-hand corner, and then the wishes right underneath the word winter. For some finishing touches, I'm adding a few snowflakes, and I used white pearlescent paper for those just to add a little bit of shimmer. And these dies are also by Honeybee Stamps. I'll glue 2 of them to the lower right-hand corner and then one above the warm word. And I'm using Barely Art liquid glue. Just trying to make sure they're going to stay in place, so I'm adding the weight of one of my acrylic blocks. So I'll add that final snowflake. And I'm also going to pull out some of the bling and put one in the center of each of the snowflakes. Now the gem stickers do have adhesive on the back, but I just want to make sure they're going to stay in place. So I'm also adding just a small drop of liquid adhesive. And there is my finished card. I love how this one turned out. I did end up making 2 similar cards. Now moving on to my next set of cards. I'm using a card sketch from MFT. This is number 520. I have 2 pattern papers, one with some snowflakes and sort of a gold looking background. The other has a gold glitter snowfall. It doesn't actually have any glitter on there, but it has the look of it. I'm going to layer both of these pieces on some gold mirror cardstock. And I did cut out the center just to save on that specialty cardstock. And then I'll fill in the gap with some scrap cardstock. I'll add a thin strip of cardstock between those 2 pattern papers. I did put a strip of double stick tape on the back of that cardstock first. And then I wanted to add some more shine, so I'm using some Love from Lizi peel-offs. This is the clear gold mirror color. And I'm using the thinnest width. So I am trimming these a little wider than the panel, and I'll just wrap the ends behind the back. Now I'll put my card front onto a card base. And if you are curious about my cardstock layers, they're generally an additional 1/8 of an inch to the measurements listed on the sketch. Now instead of those circles on the left hand side, I'm going to use a few more of the snowflake die cuts. I have the same snowflake, cut it out using that gold mirror cardstock, and then I'll adhere them down using some liquid adhesive. I decided to adhere them both the same direction just to keep them uniform. So I'll add glue to the back of the second snowflake, and I'll push them down firmly to make sure they're going to stay in place. And my sweater keeps catching on the edge of that card sketch, so that's why it keeps moving. For the sentiment, I've already stamped out the word winter. I used some Concord and 9th ink. This is the Stardust color. And then I used the coordinating die to cut out the word. Now before I adhere it to the card, I'm going to add some scrap pieces of cardstock to the upper area, more toward the right. Just trying to keep everything nice and level. I'll put some liquid adhesive on the back and then glue it to the center of the card. Then using that same stamp set, I stamped out the word hugs. I also used the same ink color. I'll put some liquid adhesive on the back and adhere it underneath the word winter. For a finishing touch, I'm going to use some more of the gem stickers. I tend to only use one color per card, but you could definitely mix and match them. So there is my finished card, and again I did make 2 using the same sketch and pattern papers. Now moving on to card design number 3. I'm using a sketch from Mojo Monday. This is number 539. I have 2 different pattern papers, a corrugated metal for the background, and then I guess it's a rusted metal look for this thinner strip going on at the left. I'm going to layer both of these pieces using some dark gray cardstock. And then for the strip going across the card, I'm using this same orange cardstock that I'll be layering the entire card with. I'll add some scrap pieces of cardstock before adhering this down, just to keep everything nice and level. And I'm going to bring in some more Love from Lizi peel-offs. This is, I believe, the copper color, copper mirror. Using the thinnest width and just putting it on the edge of this orange cardstock. And since the center of this strip is going to be covered up with the sentiment, I was able to use some of the small scrap pieces. I'll just wrap the end behind the back, put some ATG on there, and layer this on that dark gray cardstock. And I'll layer it again on the orange cardstock. It really brings out the orange in that pattern paper. So I can put my card front onto a card base, and then I'll start working on the sentiment. I have 2 circle die cuts, one in a light gray and the other in a dark gray. And I'll just adhere the 2 together, leaving about an 1/8 of an inch of a border. Then I'll stamp out the sentiment using some Versafine Clair Nocturne ink. And using my mini MISTI ensured that the sentiment was in the correct position. I also stamped it up twice for a bolder look. And I have a little assortment of words on there. It'll make more sense when I add the die cut word. So before I adhere that circle, I'm going to put that scrap cardstock piece underneath, just in the upper right hand area. I'll put some liquid adhesive on the back and then adhere it to the card. And I've already gone ahead and cut out and assembled the die cut word. I'm adding the word thankful. That whole sentiment will be, I am so thankful for you. I did add some thin foam squares on the outer right and left hand side of the sentiment where it goes off of the circle. Then I use some liquid adhesive in the center, just keeping everything nice and level. And for that banner that goes in the upper left-hand corner, using some more of that dark gray cardstock, I'll add a scrap piece of cardstock to the very top of it, and then adhere it using some liquid adhesive. For a finishing touch, I'm bringing in some more of the gem stickers, this time the dark orange color. Goes nicely with all of the rust on the pattern paper. I'll put 3 in the lower right hand corner and 2 in the upper left hand corner. And there is my finished card. This time I made a total of 4 cards. For the other 2, I flip-flopped that pattern paper. I love how there are pattern papers in this collection that don't look like holiday or winter at all. You could use them year-round. Now moving on to my 4th card design, I'm using a sketch from MFT. This is number 521. I have 3 different pattern papers and I'm going to create a little winter scene. I have the star paper for the sky and 2 different gray pattern papers for the hillside. I used a stitched hillside die by Fawn for the hills. I attached one of the hillsides first. And I have a couple of tree die cuts, and these are by Honeybee Stamps. And I used some more pattern paper, went with the white pattern paper that has a little bit of gray on it. I think it really stands out against the black and the gray. I'll use some liquid adhesive to adhere that first tree, and the lower portion of the trunk is going to be covered up by this bottom hillside. Before I attach this final hillside, I'm going to put a piece of black cardstock right underneath the other hillside, just trying to keep everything nice and level. So now I'll put some liquid adhesive on the back of this die cut. And I realized I attached that background hillside a little too high, so I have a wider gap at the very bottom of the card. I will be trimming that off later. For the tree that goes behind the hill, I'm going to trim it down a little bit and tuck it behind that hillside. And then I'm going to add this same small tree top. I'll put a small piece of cardstock on the lower portion. That way it'll have a little extra dimension without adding any thick foam dimensional tape. I'll just adhere it in place using some liquid adhesive. So now I'll trim off that extra little bit of the black cardstock, put my card front onto a card base. I'm going to leave that white border showing for some more contrast. For the sentiment, I've stamped out the word winter, and I use the coordinating die to cut it out. For the outline layer, I use some silver mirror cardstock that I have on hand. I'm going to glue the two together using some liquid adhesive. And then I already have some foam tape on the back side so I can pop this up. I like to use the thin foam tape instead of that thicker foam tape so it's easier to mail without paying extra postage. I also stamped out the word wishes. I put it on some gray cardstock and I'll just adhere it underneath the word winter. And for some finishing touches, I'm going to use a few more of the snowflakes. Add some liquid adhesive to the back. I'll adhere 1 to the lower left hand corner and 2 in the upper right hand corner. And I used some shimmer paper for the snowflakes, so they do take just a little bit longer for that glue to adhere. I'm also going to add one of the gem stickers to the center of each of the snowflakes. I think it adds a really pretty touch. I thought about adding a few more of the gem stickers around the card, but I felt it didn't really need it. It already has the sparkle from the snowflakes and also the outline of the word winter. So there is my finished card, and I did end up making a total of 4. Now moving on to my final set of cards. Using the burlap or linen looking pattern paper and also Honeybee Stamps burlap die, I cut out this fun image. I cut out the circle die cut using some more of the snowflake pattern paper. And I'm going to layer that on some of the gold mirror cardstock. The very background piece is some white shimmer paper. And now I'm going to adhere this burlap die cut onto that shimmer paper. And there are a lot of little areas you could add liquid adhesive. I'm not going to worry about all of those spots. So I just make sure to get glue along that outside edge and then just a few other little spots. And then I'll adhere it onto that shimmer paper. And I want to make sure it's going to stay in place, so I did let it dry for just a little bit. I'll put my card front onto a card base. And there wasn't enough room to add another layer. I would have had to make a larger card. And all of my cards are A2 size, so I didn't have any extra room. Put some liquid adhesive on the back of the circle die cut and adhered it onto the card front. While that dries, I'm going to assemble this pine cone. I love this pine cone die set by Honeybee Stamps. There's 6 different pieces and you just layer them all together to create this fun pine cone look. The set also includes some pine branches and a scallop bow. But for this card, I'm only going to use the pine cone pieces. I'm also just using brown cardstock. You could do all kinds of decorating to it, but I wanted to have the contrast with the brown cardstock against that snowflake pattern paper. I put some liquid adhesive on the back and adhered it in place, putting it at an angle. And then using some brown and white twine, I'm tying a double bow. Trim off the tails. Then I'll use a glue dot to adhere it to the top of the pine cone. So I do fold that glue dot in half. I want to make sure none of it's going to peek out from behind the twine and catch on the envelope. For the sentiment, bringing out that word winter again. I'm going to use some ink from scrapbook.com. This is the gingerbread color. It's a really pretty brown color. I'm going to ink it up twice so I get a nice solid impression, and then I'll use the coordinating die to cut out the word. I recently purchased all of the season word dies from Honeybee Stamps, so I'm really excited. They will be perfect to add to the cards I donate to the residents at a local retirement home. I'm going to pop up the word winter. I'm going to use some thicker foam dimension this time. Try to make sure to get really good coverage, so I'm cutting some teeny tiny pieces to get every little area on this die cut. Then I'll remove the backing and attach it underneath the circle die cut. Since the letter T does go over that circle die cut, I needed to make sure to remove some of that foam dimension. Otherwise, it wouldn't have all been level. So I'll just try to make sure to get the word nice and straight. I've also stamped out the words warm and wishes. I put some scrap cardstock on the right side of the word warm and then a thin foam square to the left. Just again, trying to keep everything nice and level. For the word wishes, I just used some thin foam squares. For a finishing touch, I'm going to bring in some more of the gem stickers, this time the dark brown color. Put 2 of them in the upper left-hand corner, a couple in the lower right-hand corner, and then a few around the pine cone image. So there is my finished card, and I did end up making 2. And I think this is my favorite card from all of them. But do let me know if you have a favorite. Now here's just a quick recap of the 14 cards I made using Honeybee Stamps Farm Fresh Holiday 6x6 paper pad. This is a beautiful paper collection and doesn't need to be holiday cards or even winter cards. You can always use the back side of the design. I will have links provided in the description box for all of the products used in this video. I'll also add a link to their brand new Love Letters collection. It's so pretty. I am planning on using it this year. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.